Hey Ravens, welcome back to another edition of Tarot Tuesday. Today is December 3rd, 2019. A couple of quick notes before we get to the actual reading itself. I want to talk to you guys about a couple of changes that are upcoming to some of the content that I offer. For starters, if you're already a subscriber to the Night Sky newsletter, this won't really affect you. This has to do with future stuff, but the Night Sky newsletter is becoming exclusively a Patreon tier. You only have to pledge $1 at Patreon to get in on the Night Sky newsletter, but it is going to be put behind that wall. So for those of you who are already subscribed, great. For those of you who aren't yet, you've got till the end of this year, till December 31st, 2019. After that, it becomes Patreon exclusive, starting on the 1st of the new year. Excuse me. In addition, on Patreon, you can find all kinds of other stuff. I do Patreon exclusive readings from time to time. You can also subscribe there for stuff like discounts on readings in pyrography, one free reading a month, a personalized monthly astrology forecast in a vein somewhat similar to the Night Sky newsletter, but pinned around directly your birth chart. All those things are at patreon.com. I'm 9 Nights Wisdom there, just like I am here on YouTube. Check it out. I think it's worth your time. I certainly think it's worth mine. There was something else. This is why I should write things down. Well, I guess since that's all I really remember, let's just go on to the readings. Couple of big things going on this week. One of them is happening yesterday. Weird way of phrasing that. It happened yesterday, which is that Capricorn moved into, or wrong way, reverse that. Jupiter moved into Capricorn. We're going to touch on a couple of things with this week's reading, one big, longer aspect and one much shorter one. But because Jupiter spends a little over a year in every sign. So Jupiter is leaving its home sign of Sagittarius. It won't be back there until 2030. So Jupiter is represented in my astrology deck by the Wheel of Fortune. And it's moved into Capricorn, which is the devil. So Jupiter in Capricorn is about certain kinds of expansion. Jupiter is always about expansion. It's one of its things. Expansion, higher education, travel, big things. Those sort of lofty things that Sagittarius is always firing its arrow at. And so in Capricorn, it's the expansion becomes of things more material and more earthly. Capricorn is the natural ruler of the 10th house, which is one of the houses of career and finance. So you can expect there to be some effects there, but it's going to depend mostly on where Capricorn lies in your chart. For me, because I'm an Aquarius rising, Capricorn is my 12th house. So all of this stuff has to do with institutions and secrets and spirituality and stuff like that. All the things that are, for me that have a depth of internal personalness. But that's going to vary based from person to person. If Capricorn is your rising sign, Jupiter is moving into your first house, which means that Jupiter is moving into the house of yourself. And the ego, not in terms of being like a stuck-up prick, but the ego in terms of the I, the self. And so, like I say, if you want to know more specifics about that, I would be more than happy to sit into your birth chart with you. Drop me a line on Facebook, Instagram, Patreon, right here in the comments. I will get back to you. But so with the Wheel of Fortune and the Devil, specifically in the tarot part of this, we're dealing with sort of the Wheel of Fortune is kind of the natural order of things, and the Devil is all about self-imposed restriction and limitation. And so we're basically what we're seeing is the fallout of or what we will see over the next year is the fallout of where we've held ourselves back and how we can grow from it. always a good thing to do. Um, but in these early days, we might see, like I say, we might see it in more directly like Capricorn's sphere of influence before it gets to the place where it starts to affect our natal charts and our personal energies more directly in that fashion. So, look in these early days, this first week or two, for changes in the workplace, for growth in the workplace, especially where you're concerned or where things around you are concerned. Um, but in the meantime, tomorrow, Wednesday the 5th, we also have the moon making another aspect to Neptune. For those of you who tuned in last week, you'll remember that last week we were talking about the moon square Neptune. Now we're talking about the moon conjunct Neptune. This is a totally different thing because now, where before we were struggling to get outside of the box, now we're going to have to deal directly with this sort of mutable way of thinking. So the moon is the high priestess, as you well know if you've been watching a lot of my videos. Neptune is the hanged man. This is all going on in Pisces, which itself is the moon. So again, there's a lot of internal change going on. A lot of adopting new perspectives of the self and sort of, being a little more willing to experiment with our self perception and understanding that the personality changes moment to moment in little ways, sometimes in large ways, but always at least a little. Um, you're never the same person really 2 minutes in a row, let alone, 2 hours, 2 days, 2 months, 2 years. Um, so there's a little bit more room for you to sort of imagine an experiment with a new self. Especially while this is going on in Pisces, which, as the mutable water sign, is the sign that is the most, without having anything to do with the planet Mercury, it's very mercurial. Um, and so, lots of room to explore, the self in this time when there's lots of growth and expansion to be had. There is also the opportunity to change oneself in order to you can basically, in these early days of Jupiter and Capricorn, sort of pivot yourself to take advantage of it the most fully. This does mean, though, that you might end up, this might end up making some major changes to who you are or who you think you are. You needn't fear it too much, I don't think. But we'll see what the cards have to say. We're talking about a lot of stuff. Jupiter's moving around. The moon and Neptune are getting cozy again. I will also have one last draw for another aspect that goes on later in the week, but it's going to be caught kind of close between the end of this week's effects and the beginning of next week's. So it's going to end up being sort of a transitional thing, but I do want to talk about it once we're done. However, right now we're dealing with Jupiter in Capricorn and the moon and Neptune conjunct in Pisces. Hello, little friend. Sweet pea. Do you want to say hi to the nice people? Say hi. This is Wunyo, one of our resident familiars. She's named after one of the Old Norse runes that means joy. Love you, baby. I'll play with your sister. So, Moon conjunct Neptune in Pisces and Jupiter in Capricorn. Let's see what's in store for everybody. We're coming to the tail end of Sagittarius now, but you do still get to be first. For at least a little bit longer. The Three of Swords. I never like to draw this card. You can probably hear that from my tone of voice when I talk about it. I never like to draw the Three of Swords for anybody. In this case, I think, though, that given the rest of the draw, the astrology as it's going, what you'll be dealing with, Sagittarius, is the ways that the changes to self automatically denote loss and grief. To lose your sense of who you are is one of the worst things, can be one of the worst things to lose. It can be tough to realize that you're not the person that you thought you were, and that because of that basis of interacting with the world isn't what you thought it was. And we all grapple with this from time to time. This week is your week. It's going to be one where you mourn the old you. Now, don't wallow in that sadness. No. The hurt is the way to heal. You have to acknowledge the pain in order to recover from it. So do that. Sit with your grief. Sit with the sorrow. Let it have its moment, and then go forward. It's okay to be sad about not being the person that you thought you were, but you can't cling to them. So don't. You can make the new you much better anyway. For Capricorn, we have the Five of Wands. Just petty strife, petty struggles, pointless, and really like even more so than the usual degree. This is just pointless, meaningless. It's a pissing contest. This is. The things that are struggling for primacy in... Honey, what do you want? I'm trying to talk to the people. Where you go, silly girl? Come here. Come sit on my lap. Come here. In the struggle for primacy, you're going to find that like a lot of these things don't need to take up as much of your time and energy and thought process and occupy such a large part of your personality. You can let it go. It would be better to. A lot of this is just it's petty, it's stupid. You don't need to be struggling with this, so don't let it go. Give it over. There are better things to be focusing your time on. Again, I cannot stress enough the feeling of wasted time and wasted energy that is radiating off the Five of Wands for you today, Capricorn. Let it go. Let it go. More wands for Aquarius. We have the Six of Wands. You should stand your ground this week, Aquarius. There is a victory to be had. But what you did, the standing your ground specifically is standing up for yourself, standing up for who you are, what you believe. It's a short victory. It won't take a lot to win. It also isn't worth a lot to have, but it is a victory. And especially when it comes to standing up for yourself and again, you know, who you are, what you believe, all these things. Those little victories add up very, very quickly and can often be the catalyst for future future victories and increased ability to defend oneself. I get the feeling from this that this will be a new thing for you somehow. This will be something that either you haven't had to stand up for yourself in this way before, or maybe you've never done it at all, or just not for a very long time. Any of these things are possible, and now we have the Advocate. I wonder why they're coming in here to bother me while I'm trying to do this. This is unusual. But in either case, Aquarius, stand up for yourself. Don't let this be the way to being able to take pride in who you are. You're not there yet, I don't think, but you will be. This is the first step on that journey. For Pisces, we have the Two of Swords. This card goes deep, Pisces, because from what I'm getting from the Two of Swords this time is that um, there's something you need to excise uh, from yourself, and it isn't a thing. There are a couple things that it could be, and you have to make a choice between them. Neither is easy. In fact, both will be quite difficult, and it's you're taking something toxic out of yourself. Um, you're cutting away some sort of cancer, and this is a good thing, but it is going to hurt. Um, there is going to be, it'll be a clean stroke, but there will be frayed edges. There will be good lost along with the bad. You have to let that go. This is the card of the double-edged sword. You can cut away the negativity, but that's also going to require you to cut away something that is also good, but it isn't worth keeping in light of all the bad attached to it. Whether this is a person or a personality trait or something else, I can't really say. I do know, though, that in the long run, you're going to be better off cutting this loose than holding on to it. Even though it will hurt to lose the quite positive thing that is attached to all this negativity. I ache for you looking at this card, Pisces, and I'm not sure why. Right here, right in the heart chakra. Um, but like I say, from that I can tell you this is going to hurt. Um, you will be better for it despite the pain. The Three of Wands for Aries. A gateway to realms beyond. A door is opening for you. And you need to you need to actively and decisively, which is usually not as difficult for you as I feel like it's going to be, Aries. Trust me, I know. You need to actively and decisively step through this doorway if you're going to. You do not have to. It is not absolutely vital to you to accept whatever is offered to you on the opposite side of this gateway as something different, but you need to decisively step through it. You need to decide whether what you're doing is really what you want to be doing, and then go. There's really not much more to this. It's very simple. It's just this. Here's an opportunity. If you want it, it's yours. Go get it. But do you want it? What's the difference between the you who wants it and the you who doesn't, Aries? What's the difference? For Taurus, we have the Fool. We're embarking on a new you, Taurus. We are embarking on a brand new you. As you know, most likely, the Fool is the very first card, or the very last card, or both, in the Major Arcana. And you are the Fool. You are beginning something brand new. You are setting out with total... I hesitate to use the word ignorance, but you're starting a journey without any idea of what the road ahead is. You are like I said, you're embarking on a new you. It is time to embrace a different way of being. You may already be doing this, and it's time to step more fully into that new way of being. It is time to leave the nest, leave the branch, and test your wings. I'm really excited to see where this goes for you over the next year, Taurus. Good luck. For Gemini, we have the Star, the omen of things to come. Now, for a sign that, um, if you want to be charitable, has a way of being of two minds, and if you want to be uncharitable, is two-faced. Um, the sign of things to come, the star, being put with a place where the person, the self is shifting, the you is shifting, is extremely poetic. Um, there is a sense in which these aspects are allowing you to embrace yourself most fully. As someone who is more than one thing at a time, because what this is allowing you to do is transition from either or to both and. It is possible to contain multitudes and contradictions. It's possible to be two different people at the same time, or more. You cannot be defined by a single thing that you are. Like, to call me an astrologer is accurate, but I am also a banker. That's my day job. Those two things, at least to me, seem kind of incongruous, and yet. Such is the case with you. This is a sign of things to come. As you grow in various ways, you are becoming more than one kind of person at the same time, Gemini. Embrace it. Embrace it. Your complexity is what makes you you. This is true of everybody, but especially for you this next week, Gemini. Your complexity is what makes you you, and rather than resist that, it's time to seize it. Being yourselves is all that you can do. For Cancer, we have the Sun or Knight of Cups. You're always the caretaker, Cancer. It is what you excel at. It is what you are the best at. It is what you are most naturally geared towards with the sun in that sign. And this is a week in which you're stepping more fully into that role as the bringer of healing. You carry the chalice of water from the fountain of youth or from the elixir of life. Pick your favorite metaphor. I don't give a single damn about the metaphor. I obviously care about this. I wouldn't keep doing it if I didn't. But you are the one bearing this chalice. You do not have to let everyone drink from it freely. Very important that I tell you this. Not sure why. But you do not have to let everyone drink from those healing waters freely, especially not since they come from you. You've found a new way to fill your cup. Do not immediately pour it out and empty it. Oh, come here, baby. Looks like Mir wants to say hello to you. Come here, you. Say hi to nice people, sweetie. This is our other kitty. Her name is Amir. You probably heard her screaming. That's how she got her name. Look. People. Okay. She's very not interested in laps, which is unfortunate because I always want her to snuggle and she never does. But back to the matter at hand. Cancer. You may allow people a sip or a drink or several, but you don't need to let everyone drink from it. You don't need to pour your cup out for everybody. And ultimately, because you hold it, you are the one in charge of deciding who gets to drink and who doesn't. You don't have to let them take it from you. That cup belongs to you. For Leo, we have the Eight of Swords, the card of transformation. This is an interesting card for somebody who, for a sign ruled by the sun, and therefore so keenly in tune with the self already. Some say focused, and some people are very uncharitable about Leos and being egotistical. But we're all self-directed. It's not self-direction and self-obsession are two different things. And just because some Leos have it doesn't mean they all do. Because everybody is guilty of being self-obsessed from time to time. But this is a really interesting card, I think, in light of the fact that we're talking about the personality and the ego and a sign so driven by it, because this is indicating there are things about yourself that you were unwilling to look past. Flaws that you were unwilling to look beyond. And therefore unable to see that you could rise above them. Quite literally, that is, after all, a butterfly. Chrysalis no longer. You are capable, Leo, of so much more self-love than you have given to yourself of late. And whether this is your wake-up call or you're getting a different one somehow, I'm not sure, but it is time to look beyond. You always have been able to, but it is time to look beyond these things that you perceive as flaws. It is time to embrace a new way of looking at yourself in order that you might embrace yourself more fully. I find it rather interesting that no one is quite so powerfully afflicted by this so far, Leo, it seems, as you. For Virgo, we have the Page of Swords. And again, we've been spending a lot of time in this reading talking about new perspectives and new ways of thinking. And this is where you are, Virgo. There is a shift in thought for you. Page of Swords, or Daughter of Swords. Not only is it the step outside the box, but the step back. Not so quickly wielding the sword of rational thought. Because that's the thing about a sword, is that you can strike rather directly with it. This is holding back. This is waiting for the opportune time. Again, it's a lot of shifts in just thought process, both on a direct level and on a meta level. You're not just changing the ways that you think, but you're changing the ways you think about the way you think. I will say that for a sign that is often maligned for liking things in a particular order, that this is a week which affords you the chance to get your head, Virgo, in that particular order. So take it. Take it. Reorder your thoughts. I think it will be good for you. For Libra, the Daughter of Wands. You've got a new passion, Libra. It may be for a person. It might be that kind of passionate creative heat. But it needn't be. It needn't involve other people at all. It could be a new passion project. Maybe you bought a new book that you're itching to read. It could be so minuscule. It could be so massive. But either way, you have this new passion that's really starting. It's making some changes to the way. Again, we've been talking about how we've been changing the perception of self. Some new passion, some new energy in your life is what's instigating this change for you, Libra. You are learning something about yourself that you didn't already know. This is not something you knew about yourself before, and you're learning it now. And it's making you, it's very reasonably, I think, making you question, how you understand yourself. Maybe this is the sort of thing you never thought you'd be into, in whatever way that's relevant. But I want to tell you not to fight this feeling, but with the Daughter of Wands being the card you drew, I don't think that you can. I will caution you, A, to not let the passion consume you, as it's very capable of doing. You're an air sign, this is fire. Fire feeds on air. Be careful not to let this passion consume you, but also take the time to think about it, How different a person does it really make you to feel the way you feel about whatever this is? Are you actually that different? And if so, what else needs to change? Last, but most certainly not least, we have Scorpio. And the Son of Swords. Haste and speed, something very... Well, I won't say that it's unusual for you, Scorpio, but that this always seems to come at very momentous feeling times. This always feels... whenever the opportunity to strike shows to you, which is what this is, the Knight of Swords is the iron is hot, strike now. And this always feels momentous for you. It always feels significant. You've never experienced, I don't think, this feeling. Whoa, shoot. Lost a whole bunch of cards there just now. You've probably never experienced this feeling without feeling like destiny was at play somehow. That time or fate or the universe or a higher power were on your side. This may very well be the case. In any event, whatever it is that whatever sign you've been waiting for, this is it. I'm wondering what it is about yourself that has to do with this. I'm not really seeing the connection between the Son of Swords and the rest of the reading. Something about the nature of the strike or where you are striking is most likely the answer. Goodness gracious, I cannot get a grip on these things. But in any event, now is the moment. Just do not be so quick to strike hot iron that you burn yourself on it. Like with Sagittarius at the start of the reading, it is always sad when it is time to let the self go and realize that you're not the person that you thought you were. It is a lot worse to remove parts of the self that you don't yet know whether or not they need to remain. That's the danger for you, Scorpio. So at the outset of this reading, I spoke to y'all about an upcoming aspect that I wanted to touch on real briefly as transitory, as it gets us from this Tarot Tuesday to next week's. And that is the conjunction of the moon to retrograde Uranus, which takes place on Sunday the 8th. Not going to search through the cards. But the moon, High Priestess, in Taurus, the Hierophant, with Uranus the Fool reversed. All of this, by the way, will be trying the newly made resident of Capricorn, Jupiter. So, as a direct result of the growth that is beginning yesterday, that began yesterday, let me speak English correctly. As a direct result of the growth that had its first spark of life yesterday, now we're experiencing something, again, coming back from either from our past or starting something over, because the Fool reversed isn't a new beginning the way the Fool upright is. This is going back. It's more like going back to take a leap of faith after climbing all the way down the edge of the cliff to see what lies at the bottom. Is that safer? In most cases, yes, but it makes it a lot more work because you climb down, climb up, and then jump. Especially, if you find that, and you very well may with the various aspects that are at play here, that it was safe to make the leap all along. It was time to make that shift. Throws an interesting wrinkle into this, doesn't it? So I want to draw a couple of cards for everybody for advice for this as we use it to transition into what lies ahead for next week. I'm not going to give you any previews for next Tarot Tuesday. You're going to have to come back on your own to figure it out. And you're going to want to. But in the meantime, here are some cards to sort of, as the shake-up to the self plays out and this new influence takes over very briefly before we slide into next week. Three of Wands again. Five of Swords. And Two of Cups. Again, like with Aries draw for the week, this is a doorway opening. So, in what is totally apropos for Aries as the reckless, impatient sign that it is, love y'all, share that good/bad thing with you. But Aries is going to get a head start on this, but everyone's going to go through by the end of the week, where a doorway opens to something we're going to have to struggle towards. Whatever it is that lies on the other side of this door, what awaits us on the other side of this door is peace. Is perfect unity with something. I don't think it's someone the way this card normally has that vibe of like finding a lost, finding a lover or whatever, a romantic partner or what have you. This feels more like, again, perfect peace, perfect. It feels more, really, it's weird because with these other cards, this Two of Cups feels more like the 10. Again, a feeling of peace, of deep contentment and satisfaction. So maybe more like the 9. But more probably the 10, since as you'll notice, that's what these cards add up to. 3, 5, and 2, 3, 8, 10. But in between is a struggle. And specifically with the Five of Swords, the thing to watch out for is trying to merely win versus trying to dominate. Dominating is not the correct response to be taking to this. It's one thing to win. It is another thing to win so completely that you take away the ability of your opponent, the other combatant, that they can't fight back at all. Something about the struggle itself is needful, and trying to avoid it or fight in ways that reduce it is going to minimize the value of the victory. Interesting way to end the weekend. But in any case, this has been Tarot Tuesday for December 3rd, 2019. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Come see me on Patreon to get your stuff if you want it. And as always, I will see you next week.